In the heart of an empire where emotion is a weakness, Queen Diona has always ruled with cold precision. But when she meets a human captain, everything changes. Could the human concept of climax really be the key to unlocking something her species has long suppressed? What happens when a queen learns to feel, and the galaxy begins to question everything it has ever known? Will Diona embrace her newfound desires, or will her empire tear itself apart in the process? The revolution of the heart has begun, and nothing will ever be the same again. Stay tuned to find out what happens when a queen dares to challenge centuries of control. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The grand banquet hall of the Emerald Palace shimmered with an ethereal light, casting a soft glow across the gathering of dignitaries from various planets. The high ceilings, adorned with intricate marble columns, seemed to stretch endlessly toward the sky. Overhead, thousands of floating candelabras flickered in a delicate dance, their golden ornaments catching the soft light and creating an atmosphere of majestic elegance. It was an event that only the most powerful beings in the galaxy could ever dream of attending. Captain Finn Hartman stood in the middle of the room, feeling the weight of the unfamiliar culture pressing against him. The alien dignitaries around him were dressed in elaborate robes made of shimmering materials, their skin hues ranging from deep indigo to radiant emerald. He stood out, not just because of his human form, but also because of the air of discomfort he exuded. His light blue eyes scanned the room, observing the grandeur of the palace. The marble walls seemed to pulse with life, reflecting the quiet hum of the energy that buzzed within the palace. It was beautiful, but it also felt cold, calculated, almost too perfect. He tugged at the collar of his stealth suit, the fabric, sleek against his skin but restrictive. He wasn't used to such finery, and it made him feel out of place. This wasn't his world. This was the world of the Varelians, a species so far removed from humanity's warmth and emotion. They were creatures of logic and control, their society built on efficiency and order. Pleasure, passion, connection, those were things they saw as distractions. And yet, here he was, standing in their midst, surrounded by beings who seemed to be capable of everything except truly feeling. Admiring my taste in decor, Captain? The voice was melodious, flowing with an elegance that seemed to match the surroundings. Finn turned toward the sound of the voice and saw her, the queen herself. Queen Diona stood before him, her appearance striking and regal. Her vibrant violet skin shimmered like polished amethyst, and her long flowing hair cascaded down her back like strands of liquid silver. Her eyes, large and crystal clear, glowed with an inner light, piercing through Finn with an intensity that made his breath catch. A tiara of intricate design rested atop her head, and her gown, made from the finest silks, clung to her lithe form in a way that left no question about her royal status. He bowed slightly, his roguish grin playing at the corners of his lips. "Your Majesty, I must say this celebration rivals even the greatest pleasures I've known." The queen raised an elegant eyebrow, her eyes glinting with amusement. "Oh? And what pleasures might those be?" she asked, her voice lilting, in a way that both intrigued and tested him. Finn leaned in slightly, his breath warm against her ear as he spoke in a lowered tone. "Well, on Earth we would compare this level of grandeur to what we call a climax, an experience of pure ecstasy, the height of human pleasure." Nearby Varelian nobles tittered nervously, exchanging glances, but Queen Diona's expression remained coolly amused. She stared at Finn for a long moment, her gaze unwavering. "Ah, yes, the famous human climax," she mused, her lips curling into a slight smile. "Nothing but an exaggerated myth, I'm sure. For my people, reproduction is a purely biological act. It is clinical, devoid of such primitive responses." Finn chuckled softly, a spark of humor dancing in his eyes. "I assure you, Your Majesty, it's very real for humans. It's like touching divinity itself, pure transcendence." Her emerald eyes narrowed slightly as she studied him. The Varelian queen was a master of control, and had seen many things throughout her long reign. But this human, with his unfiltered emotions and strange concepts, was a puzzle she couldn't quite place. What was it about him that intrigued her so? "You speak with such conviction, Captain," she said, her tone soft but with an underlying hint of curiosity. "Perhaps you'd care to elaborate on this phenomenon in a more private setting?" Before Finn could respond, two hulking guards appeared at his sides. Their ceremonial armor clanged as they stepped forward, clearly positioned to protect the Queen at any cost. Diona made a graceful gesture toward a hidden door behind her throne. "My personal chambers should provide adequate privacy for such educational discussions," she said, her voice now a mix of playful intrigue and royal command. The guards escorted Finn through winding corridors made of polished stone, the air growing cooler as they moved deeper into the palace. The walls around them were lined with intricate tapestries depicting the rich history of the Varelian people. Battlefields, rulers, and great victories all captured in colorful, detailed designs. Yet despite the grandeur of the palace, there was something hollow about it. Finn couldn't shake the feeling that this empire was built on an artificial kind of perfection, devoid of the messy, unpredictable nature of true living. Finally, they reached an ornate door, guarded by yet another set of Varelian soldiers. The doors opened to reveal Queen Diona's private chambers, a study in luxury and minimalism. Silk drapes cascaded down the walls, their colors shifting with the light. Plush furnishings, made from materials Finn could hardly name, filled the space. Through a wide balcony, the city of Varelia stretched out beneath a glittering sky, the capital's skyline shining like a beacon of cold, distant beauty. Diona entered moments later, having changed into a more comfortable yet no less alluring gown that hugged her figure. The transformation from the formal queen to this more intimate version of herself only added to Finn's curiosity. "Now then, Captain," Diona said, her voice laced with intrigue. "Tell me more about this climax of yours." Finn's eyes traced her form appreciatively, but he didn't respond immediately. The tension in the room was palpable, and he realized that this moment was unlike anything he'd ever experienced before. He wasn't just standing before a powerful alien queen. He was standing before someone who was willing to open herself to a completely new experience, something that could change everything. He smiled slightly, the hint of a challenge in his voice. "Your Majesty, some things are better demonstrated than explained." Diona's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Is that so?" He moved closer, closing the distance between them, his words soft but full of intent. "It would be my pleasure," he murmured, as the Queen's gaze softened and her breath caught. This was it, the beginning of something far beyond what either of them had expected. The air was thick with anticipation as the heavy, ornate doors to Queen Diona's private chambers closed behind Captain Finn Hartman. The sounds of the royal banquet, with its soft murmur of voices and delicate music, faded into a quiet hum, replaced by the rhythmic footsteps of the guards retreating down the corridor. The grand, pristine hallway seemed a stark contrast to the intimate warmth that now filled the Queen's chambers. Finn took in the surroundings, the room alive with the subtle play of light and shadows. Rich tapestries adorned the walls, woven with patterns that seemed to shift as the light from the palace's massive windows filtered through. The color of the air was different here, warmer, softer. The flickering lights from the floating orbs overhead added a touch of enchantment, making everything look as though it were carved from the finest crystal. Queen Diona, a figure of grace and power, moved across the room like a vision of fluid elegance. She shed the weight of her royal crown, her flowing gown rippling behind her like a soft cascade of shimmering water. With every movement, her skin caught the light, glowing with an ethereal radiance that captivated Finn's senses. He knew then that he was no longer just a human soldier in an alien palace. He was a participant in something monumental. He watched her closely, the quiet hum of the palace outside giving way to the gentle, intimate silence between them. Diona, ever the composed and collected ruler, seemed to be shedding more than just her royal attire. There was a vulnerability in her movements, a curiosity in her eyes that Finn had not seen before. "Tell me more," she said, her voice low and steady, but the glint of intrigue in her eyes betrayed her composure. "About this human experience you call the climax, I have never encountered such a concept in our history." Finn hesitated for a moment, a slight grin tugging at the corners of his lips. There was something electric in the air, something that transcended the boundaries of culture and species. It wasn't just the promise of something physical. It was the understanding that he was about to share with her a part of humanity that even his fellow soldiers barely understood. He took a step forward, his hand resting lightly on the back of a plush chair. "It's not just an experience," he began, his voice soft but steady. "The climax is the culmination of emotion, of trust, connection, and feeling. It's a moment where everything else fades away, and all that remains is a pure, unbridled connection between two people." Diana's eyes never left him, her emerald gaze intense as if she were trying to decipher something hidden beneath his words. There was no judgment, no mockery in her expression, only the quiet curiosity of a monarch trying to understand a foreign concept. She had never thought much about emotions beyond their biological function. Her species had long since discarded such indulgences in favor of structure and control. "Your people," Finn continued, moving closer, "they see intimacy as a sterile, mechanical act. But humans, we experience it as a dance of trust. It's not about the physicality alone. It's about sharing something beyond what can be measured." He stepped closer, his voice now softer. "When two people come together in such a way, it's not just about bodies, it's about souls intertwining, if you will." Diana's lips parted slightly, and for the first time, her stoic exterior cracked. The queen, who had ruled with unmatched precision, was beginning to see beyond the confines of her world. Her thoughts were no longer in the orderly columns of Varelian logic, but in the unpredictable, exhilarating realm of human emotion. She took a deep breath, her pulse quickening as she processed the magnitude of what Finn was saying. "And you think this is something I could understand?" Finn smiled, his eyes twinkling with the confidence of someone who knew the depths of the experience he was describing. "I think you already do, Your Majesty. You just don't know it yet." The room felt smaller now, the space between them closing with each word, each glance exchanged. The air was thick with unspoken tension, and Finn realized that this was not just about teaching an alien queen about humanity's most intimate experience. This was about two beings, one from a cold clinical society, and one from a world that reveled in the complexities of emotion, coming together in a way that could change everything. Diana's thoughts raced, and she found herself conflicted. She had never allowed herself to feel in the way that Finn was describing. To her people, emotions were weaknesses to be controlled, studied, and suppressed. But standing before her now was a man who seemed to embody everything her culture had rejected. Vulnerable, open, and alive in ways that made her own existence feel stifled. Without thinking, she stepped closer, her body drawing toward him, like a magnet. Her bioluminescent skin shimmered faintly as she closed the distance between them. She could feel the pulse of energy between them, an undeniable connection that made her heart race in a way she had never experienced. "I have been told that for my people, this connection, this feeling, is dangerous," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "That it is something to be avoided." Finn placed a hand on her shoulder gently, his thumb tracing the contours of her skin. "Maybe it's dangerous," he said softly, "but sometimes the things that scare us the most are the ones that change us for the better." For a moment, Diana stood still, her eyes searching his face as though trying to measure the truth of his words. Then, with a soft sigh, she closed the space between them completely, pressing her body against his. Her skin felt cool against his warmth, but there was a heat rising between them, palpable and undeniable. Finn's breath caught as her fingers brushed against his chest, her touch tentative at first, as though she were testing the waters of this new world. He could see it in her eyes, the curiosity, the desire, the fear, and the excitement all tangled together. He could sense that she was no longer just a queen, a ruler of a mighty empire. She was a woman standing at the precipice of something entirely new, Show me, Captain, Diona murmured, her voice now trembling with anticipation. Show me what it means to truly feel. In that moment, Finn realized that he wasn't just about to show an alien queen something new. He was about to help her rediscover something she had never known, something that would change not only her life but the future of her entire species. And as their lips met in a searing kiss, Finn knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The mirror. Air in Queen Diona's private chambers seemed to vibrate with an energy that neither Finn nor the Queen could quite explain. The brief kiss they had shared had ignited a fire between them, one that neither could extinguish. For Diona, it was as though her entire world had shifted. She had always governed her emotions with the precision of a ruler, suppressing everything that could lead to weakness. But standing here, in the presence of this human, her carefully constructed walls had begun to crumble piece by piece. Finn stood at the edge of her bed, watching as Diona gracefully moved around the room. There was an almost ethereal quality to her as she glided across the space, her body glowing faintly with that bioluminescence that marked her people's emotional responses. The longer she was with him, the more pronounced her glow became, as though his very presence was unlocking something deep inside her, something both frightening and exhilarating. Diona turned to face him, her eyes intense, yet soft with a new curiosity. She had always felt a sense of control over her surroundings, her kingdom, her people. But in this moment, in the presence of Finn, that control seemed meaningless. Her breath quickened, not from fear but from something unfamiliar, a longing she could no longer suppress. You said it was about trust, vulnerability, she began, her voice trailing off. How do I trust something I have never known? Finn stepped forward slowly, his gaze never leaving her. He could sense her internal struggle, the clash between her natural instincts and the intense desire for something more. She wanted to learn. He could see it in the way her eyes shone with a hunger for knowledge, for connection. Trust isn't something you can force, Your Majesty, Finn said gently, his voice soft but confident. It's something you let happen. You can't control it. You simply have to let go and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Diona's expression was unreadable for a moment, but Finn saw the flicker of doubt cross her face. Her entire existence had been a series of calculated moves. No room for error, no room for weakness. She had never allowed herself the luxury of letting her guard down. Finn continued, his voice steady as he stepped closer, closing the distance between them. Trust comes from within, and it's built through actions, not words. You've already taken the first step by letting me into this room. Let me help you with the next. Diona inhaled sharply, her bioluminescent glow intensifying as she looked at him. And if I can't let go? She whispered, almost as if she were testing him. Then I'll be here, Finn replied, his hand gently resting on her arm. I'll wait for you, Your Majesty. I won't rush you, but you have to decide what you want. You have to decide if you're willing to trust, to feel, even if it scares you. For a moment the Queen stood still, lost in thought. Her gaze drifted from Finn's face to the ornate walls around them, as if the weight of her responsibility, her entire life, was bearing down on her. She had never questioned the way of her people, had never dared to consider that emotions, love, passion, trust, could be more than just distractions. But now, standing here with Finn, she felt something stir within her, something she couldn't ignore. Show me, Diona said suddenly, her voice low yet full of an unspoken plea. Show me how to feel, Captain. Show me how to live. Finn's heart skipped a beat at the words. This wasn't just an invitation to share something physical. It was an invitation to teach, to open the doors to a new world for someone who had been trapped in the darkness of detachment for far too long. He took her hand gently, leading her to the soft plush cushions of the bed, his touch reassuring and steady. Diona sat beside him, her body slightly trembling, not from fear but from the unfamiliar sensation of surrender. Close your eyes, Finn instructed, his voice calm and soothing. Diona hesitated for a moment, but then did as he said. She closed her eyes, allowing the darkness to envelop her. Finn placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle but firm. Now, focus on your breath, he said softly. Breathe in deeply, and exhale slowly. With every breath, feel the tension leaving your body. Let the outside world fade away, and let yourself focus on the sensation of your body, your heartbeat, your skin, your breath. Diona took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of his hand through the fabric of her gown. She could feel the weight of her responsibilities slipping away, piece by piece with every breath. She had never allowed herself to focus on something as simple as her breath. Her mind was always preoccupied with her duties, with the demands of the empire. But now, in this quiet moment, she felt something stir inside her. It was like an awakening, a light, flickering and fragile, but real. As she focused on the rhythm of her breath, Finn's voice guided her gently. Now, feel the space between us. Can you feel it? The energy that exists when two people are truly connected. Diona's breath caught in her throat. She nodded slightly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. It wasn't just the physical proximity between them. It was something deeper. She could feel the connection, the shared understanding of vulnerability. Good, Finn murmured. Now I want you to let go. Let go of all the rules, all the expectations you've carried your entire life. Let yourself feel, truly feel, in this moment. And when you're ready, reach for me. I won't pull away. Diona's heart raced in her chest. She had never allowed herself to feel so exposed, so open. She had always thought that power lay in control, in never showing weakness. But now she found herself longing for something more, something she had denied herself for too long. With a trembling hand, she reached out and touched Finn's face, her fingers grazing his skin. It was a simple touch, but it was everything. It was a gesture of trust, of surrender. And in that moment, Diona understood what Finn had meant. Trust wasn't something that could be forced. It was something that was earned, something that bloomed in the quiet moments between two people willing to let go. Finn smiled, his eyes soft as he cupped her face in his hands, drawing her closer. You're ready, he whispered. And as their lips met once more, Diona felt something shift inside her, something powerful, something beautiful. The queen who had once ruled her world with logic and control was now allowing herself to be swept away by something far greater. The raw, unfiltered power of human emotion. And in Finn's arms, she realized that she had only just begun to discover the true meaning of living. As the days passed in the radiant glow of Queen Diona's private chambers, her once unwavering sense of control began to falter in ways she could not have anticipated. Each interaction with Finn, each shared glance and whispered word, peeled away the layers of detachment she had worn so comfortably for centuries. The world she had known, one ruled by efficiency, cold logic, and a dismissal of emotion, felt distant now, a mere shadow of the vibrant, messy, and complex existence she was learning to embrace. But the transformation wasn't just internal. Diona could feel the change radiating outward, as if every fiber of her being was waking up to the warmth of human connection. It wasn't just about pleasure or intimacy. It was about something deeper, something that transcended the physical realm and seeped into her very soul. The more she allowed herself to feel, the more she realized how much her people had sacrificed in their pursuit of control. The Varelians had long since abandoned the idea of emotion, deeming it a primitive weakness. They had perfected reproduction, fine-tuned their mental and physical capacities, but they had never truly lived. They had become beings of calculation, moving through life with precision, but without the heart to feel the joy, the passion, the connection that made life worth living. One evening, as Diona sat at her grand window, gazing out over the sprawling city of Varelia, she felt a sudden wave of longing. The stars above seemed to twinkle brighter than she had ever noticed, and the city lights below shimmered with a new beauty. The air was still, almost serene, But in the quiet, she could feel something stirring within her. The same sensation that had started when she first allowed herself to connect with Finn. It was like the beginning of something new, a shift in the very fabric of her existence. "Your Majesty," a voice broke her thoughts, and she turned to find Commander Tail, standing at the door, his posture rigid as always, but there was something in his eyes, something that made Diona's stomach tighten with unease. "What is it, Commander?" she asked, her voice calm, though her mind was swirling with 1,000 thoughts. "It's about the council," Tal began, stepping further into the room. "They've been discussing your recent behavior. They're concerned." Diona's chest tightened at the mention of the council. She had known this moment was coming. The conservative factions had already begun to question her actions, whispering about the un-Varelian ways she was adopting. Her newfound openness, her willingness to feel, was seen as a threat, something that could destabilize everything she had worked for. "Concerned?" she repeated, her voice cold. "And what, exactly, are they concerned about?" Tyle hesitated. "There are murmurs, Your Majesty, about the changes in your behavior. Some fear that your emotional awakening could compromise the stability of the Empire. There are those who believe that emotions, particularly the human concept of pleasure, are dangerous." Diona's lips tightened into a thin line. She had known this was coming. The Varelian Empire had always prided itself on its efficiency, its ability to suppress what they considered distractions. But the truth was, she had begun to see through the facade of their so-called perfection. There was no heart in their society, no joy, no true connection. "I don't believe their concerns are about my emotional awakening," Diona said softly, but with a dangerous edge to her voice. "I think they are afraid of change. They are afraid of what I represent." "Change?" Tail asked, his brow furrowing. "But Your Majesty, our people, our empire, has stood for centuries on the foundation of logic and control. Emotion has no place in our way of life." "Maybe that's the problem," Diona muttered, her gaze drifting back to the window. "Perhaps it's time for us to evolve." She could feel Tael's eyes on her, the weight of his gaze heavy with concern. "But if you continue down this path, it may cost you everything. Your position, your crown." Diona turned back to him, her emerald eyes burning with a new intensity. "Then I will gladly give it up." Tael stepped forward, his voice trembling with urgency. "Your Majesty, you don't mean that." "I do," Diona replied, her tone unwavering. "I can't continue to rule a people who are too afraid to live. The Varelian Empire has been founded on fear and suppression. It's time we embraced something more, something real, something human." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of the decision she had just made. For the first time, Diona realized that she had a choice. She didn't have to conform to the rigid, emotionless society that had shaped her for so long. She could redefine what it meant to rule. She could lead her people into a new era, one of openness, connection, and, yes, emotion. "I will not be a queen who rules through fear," she said, her voice stronger now. "I will be a queen who teaches my people how to live, how to feel, how to love." Tyle remained silent, his expression unreadable, but Diona knew what was coming. She knew that not everyone would embrace the change she was about to bring. There would be opposition, there would be resistance, but she also knew that it was worth the fight, for her people, for the future of the Varelian Empire, and for herself. "I want you to prepare a message for the council," she said, turning to him with newfound authority. "Tell them that I will not be confined by their expectations. I will no longer rule with detachment. It is time for them to decide whether they will follow me into this new era, or be left behind." The next day, as the council gathered in their grand chamber, whispers filled the air. Diona could feel the tension in the room as the elders, their skin a dull shade of green from years of emotional repression, took their seats. They looked at her with suspicion, their eyes narrowed, their expressions cold. Diona stood before them, her bioluminescent skin glowing with a soft, radiant light. The room seemed to pulse with the energy of her presence, the very air thick with anticipation. "Council," she began, her voice steady yet full of passion. "I stand before you today, not as the ruler you have known, but as someone who has seen the truth. We have spent centuries living in the shadows of our own emotions, suppressing what makes us truly alive. We have perfected our bodies and minds, but we have neglected the one thing that gives life meaning, our ability to feel." A murmur rippled through the room, the elders exchanging uncertain glances. Diona continued, her eyes sweeping over each of them. "I will not allow our empire to remain stagnant, to wither in the cold grip of efficiency. We must evolve. We must embrace what it means to truly live, to love, to feel." She paused, letting her words settle in the heavy silence of the room. "I will not stand by and let fear govern our hearts. We are more than the sum of our minds and bodies. We are beings of emotion, capable of joy, pain, love, and all that makes us human, and I intend to lead us into that future." The council remained silent, but Diona could feel the resistance beginning to shift. Some of the younger members, those who had never known true connection, seemed intrigued by her words. They were hesitant, yes, but they were listening. The transformation had begun. And no one, no matter how deeply entrenched in tradition, could stop it. As Diona left the council chamber, her heart beat with a new sense of purpose. She had just started something monumental, something that would change the very foundation of her people's society. And as she walked down the long, quiet hallways of the palace, she felt the weight of the future ahead of her, but she also felt lighter than she had ever felt before. Beside her, Finn stood silently, his presence a quiet support. He knew the road ahead would not be easy, but Diona had made her decision. She had chosen to live, to lead with her heart, not just her mind. And together, they would show the galaxy what it meant to truly be alive. The revolution of the heart had begun, and there was no turning back.